TradeTheNBI.com. This is Jones Report. It's for the 26th. Hope everyone had a wonderful holiday. Market is just grappling right here around this 50% range. NBI magenta above white at this particular stage, meaning we've got stabilization and support right around that area. Short-term buyer fade in the steel here, but we're still orange between red, cyan. It's kind of a neutral continuation, which in this particular case is kind of sideways south. No help from the shakeout or anything. And now you've got your light volumes. And like we saw right before Christmas, you get these dramatic moves intraday because you have easy advantage over any one side. So uh, it's not hard to manipulate and move that a little bit. Of course, that's only a short term situation in the broader daily. Um, Overall, things pretty much stabilize pretty quickly. So intraday just gives a little bit more opportunities. I think gives you some range to play with, but looks to appear we've got some stabilization from the ES, but Nasdaq still suffering a little bit. You can see we don't have that MBI white being taken over by the magenta yet. Still in that same neutralized DOC area here, and again, deepening of that shakeout. So the Nasdaq clearly has more difficulties, but likely to support here on that 23%, or at least right back in this same range area. Nothing's looking horrible from that standpoint. Of course, treasuries, we expected this to come back down. It was ridiculous in this move from before. Those are the beautiful things when it goes really off the rails and they see that, wow, some of the economic indicators aren't horrible. Some of them aren't great. And we're kind of in this malaise of, depending on where you're at, you're getting, different configurations. And whether that evens out causes a little bit of slowdown. Maybe it's not enough to be technically, maintaining recession, but um, it's enough to keep the Fed on track. If they were looking at implosion in anything, it would be a different story. But that's not quite the case at this particular stage. Um, Oil creeping back into the 80 category. Again, that just puts a little bit more pressure on things. But again, we're well below where we've been in the peaks. So a lot of that has been assimilated and adapted to. So the longer that goes, the more assimilation you get for that price level in the economy. And while it can limit how much is happening, it's not catastrophic from a drain standpoint, though it's already had its impact. And like I said, this was one of those beautiful situations for the Fed. They've been sucking up all that excess liquidity that had been built up over the years and wiping it out pretty quick. So those that are on the marginal side that didn't have the buildup are certainly disproportionately affected, but the Fed's not overly worried about that situation. They're looking at it from broader terms. From a gold standpoint, that's not really inflationary per se, but still at the upper levels of it because, again, any supply disruption, oil, things like that, and that will negatively impact inflation from a broader standpoint. I mean, all things being equal, the Fed having to balance between some really difficult choices and having put themselves in a very bad place, really have done okay. So from that standpoint, we're okay to continue on. Now, from a euro standpoint, we're looking at a situation where the euro has stabilized here in the 106 range. No new impetus, but we're seeing a little bit of positive activity, and that may improve things a little bit. We'll see how that plays out over time. But I think that what they did from a central bank standpoint in supporting the outside currencies directly with cash infusions to prevent that uh, commodity drain from oil, and that really staved off a lot of the implosion that everything was taking in relation to the dollar. From a Bitcoin standpoint, still nothing happening. It's got a little bit of it's identical to the market in this particular case, but still unable to really get any kind of oomph. No real excitement. Of course, now we know that the FTX situation was fraud, as the girlfriend rolled over on SBF, and again, it's a killer of confidence in all aspects because this one was highly touted and everyone believed in it, and only to find that there were no controls. Plain and simple. And so that's a significant impact on the crypto world in general. I don't know how long it will take before um, confidence restored or otherwise, but um, the problem for unregulated market is the clear indication. For me, as 5K, bought it just below the 50% range and still looking at the move. So above that 54, it's still in clean territory and pretty decent from a 50K standpoint as the day moved on from the earlier softness that took place. And once the magenta got back above, that was all the way to nice and clean. You can see how ugly the day was in general, but fitting rather nicely between our previous algo levels. Um, Down here at the low of the 23 up to the 60 range, and we just pretty much contained within it. And the buy signals went to the other side. The last soft signal right there took 50%, and that moved it back up, and that was enough pretty much to stabilize price all the way through the end, and then it stayed on the upper side of that 38.60 range in a little bit of softness. So maybe we'll see that return back to the 60 level and see if it finds support there. Um, Usually coming off the holiday, everybody's a little bit more happy in that, but there's going to be a lot of year-end plays, and so we'll be looking at how that trails off. But overall, we're just continuing to like literally, it's sort of a cliffhanger here. They're just holding on by the nails. We'll continue to follow it. Ratings have been excellent from it so far, so we'll continue to follow those. As always, though, trade well. Look for us on Skype chat. Have a good one.